Good morning and welcome as we continue the series God with Us. Today we turn to Psalm 23. And I'm going to start by reading this psalm from the Living Bible. One of the things that I was taught to do Bible study is to utilize different translations of the Bible. And for many years, I used, strictly because these were available on the computer program that I had, three that appealed to me, was the New Revised Standard, the New Living Bible, and the Message. These three were available in my Quick Verse program, and I've used these three to toggle back and forth and seeing how different words were translated or how they were used. The 23rd Psalm with the New Living Bible is one that highlighted some words that really resonated with me, so that's what I want to start with this morning. The Lord is my shepherd. I have everything I need. He lets me rest in green meadows. He leads me beside peaceful streams. He renews my strength. He guides me along right paths, bringing honor to his name. Even though I walk through the dark valley of death, I will not be afraid, for you are close beside me. Your rod and staff comfort me. You prepare a feast for me in the presence of my enemies. You welcome me as a guest, anointing my head with oil. My cup overflows with blessings. Surely goodness and unfailing love will pursue me all the days of my life, and I will live in the house of the Lord forever. Now, as I was reading that, what are some of the words that you heard that you were expecting to hear something else this morning?
Pursue.
Pursue.
You should have told us before you read it that you were going to ask us that question.
And get us a copy so we can look at it.
Yeah.
My memory is not as long as yours. Dwell instead of live instead of
Yeah.
dwell. More modern English, but blessings.
Well, you're right. I should have given you a copy that you could look at and told you beforehand. I'm still learning how to do this the right way, and sometimes I forget. I had a prop that I was going to bring with me this morning to illustrate the rod and staff, and I got distracted as I came out the door and left it propped against the door of the house there. But where it says rod and staff, the shepherd's staff we're very familiar with the crook on the end of it. And it was used, the crook was used so that it could hook around the neck of a sheep to rescue them. If they would get down over a bank where they couldn't get back up, the shepherd would use that, hook it around, and pull the sheep back up to safety. The rod was a weapon. Where I grew up, we had what I always called sassafras trees that grew along fence lines, edge of a garden, or they were, a lot of people called them just trash trees. They would grow up and they would grow very fast. But right below the ground, typically because these trees would have been cut off a number of times, there would be a knot that would form just below the ground. If you dig it up, you would have this sapling, this fairly straight piece of tree, and then you have this very dense knot of wood that'd be right below. Well, if you trim the other roots off of it and trim the branches off of it, it makes a very formidable weapon.
Club.
And, well, you can use it as a club, but you can also throw it, and because of the weight on the end, it helps to guide it. And that was what the shepherds used to keep the wild animals at bay. They would have what they called the rod, this piece of wood that had this ball on the end of it, and they'd use it as either as a club or throw it, along with the slingshot that we have David using other places. And guess we should go back and talk about that also, that this is a psalm that's attributed to David. And most scholars place it at the latter part of David's life as he's serving as king. And that in writing this, he's writing it looking back to this time of his youth when he was his father's shepherd, looking after his father's sheep out in the wilderness, all alone, and remembering how God was with him, and thinking of God as his shepherd, as he was the shepherd of the sheep. As I looked at this in the New Living Translation, the things that, and I'm going to close when we get to the end here this morning, going back to the King James that we're all familiar with and may have memorized at some point in our lives. But he starts out, "The Lord is my shepherd, I have everything I need." In other words, all the essentials that we need in our life, that God is providing that. And he lets me rest in green meadows. Sheep are, it's been said, are not the smartest animals in the animal kingdom.
Nice way of putting it.
Left to their own devices, they will literally eat all of the grass. They will not only eat all the grass that is available to them, they pull the grass out of the ground and eat the roots. And so if you don't move them from place to place, they will literally destroy all of their livelihood around them. But the green meadows is a place that that they can lay down and they could be, we frequently think of such a meadow as being a peaceful place, which is the very next line, he leads me beside peaceful streams.
Plus they need to cool off, and the green grass would help cool them, because they need, with all that wool, they need to be cooled off every so often, because they overheat, and they're like a person, they'd have a heat stroke or pass out and get cooked with, if they couldn't get from shade to coolness.
Peaceful streams, there's something calming to sit beside a stream where you can hear the water as it runs along, not a roaring torrent, but just as it trickles along over the rocks. It's kind of brings a calmness into your life. He guides me along right paths. There are many times that we have to make a choice as to where we're going to, what direction we're going to go. And with God as our shepherd, we will be guided into the right path if we will listen. Even though I walk through the dark valley of death, I will not be afraid. There is a darkness to the chaos of the world that we live in. I'm not sure how David would have, what he would have been thinking of just thinking about the darkness and that brings, that's when the wild animals would tend to be attacking, that he had to be especially vigilant to watch over the sheep at night. But to me, I think of the darkness as the brokenness of the world that we live in. And that dark is just a color that we associate with chaos, or at least I associate with chaos and disorder and danger.
Well, I consider it's like uncertainty. Like at
Uncertainty.
night when you're walking, you don't know where your next step's going, in a hole, on a rock, you know, walk into a tree or a bush. It's that uncertainty of not knowing what the next step is gonna lead you.
And the old cowboy shows, you know, the bad guy always wore a black hat, and the good guy always had a white hat, so you could tell them apart. I will not be afraid, for you are close beside me. That idea that we're never apart from God, that He is always there with us. I already talked about the rod and staff and the comfort that you give. You prepare a feast for me in the presence of mine enemies. God provides for us, and He not only provides for us, He provides a feast, the very best that He has. You welcome me as a guest. The way that God welcomes us into His life, into His love. The anointing my head with oil, that was a way of singling a person out. That to anoint them was to say that they were a special person. You recall that Samuel, when he anointed Saul and then later David, that's what he did, is anoint them with oil as a symbol that God had singled these men out for His use. My cup overflows with blessing. There's a gospel song called Drinking from the Saucer. And the idea that the cup is filled up and has overflowed onto the saucer, and that you take and drink from that saucer. Now I can remember my grandmother and some other people from her generation that would purposely spill the coffee or whatever they were drinking in a cup, spill it over into the saucer.
So it would cool
So it would
faster.
cool down, and that they could drink it,
From
it would
the
cool
saucer.
faster so they could drink it faster. And then the word Jenny pointed out, surely your goodness and unfailing love will pursue me all the days of my life. That idea of pursuing, in our Methodist theology, Wesley had that idea of prevenient grace, that God pursues us, that no matter where we go, that God's there with us. We may not be aware of His presence, but His presence is there nevertheless, and that it is always there, always trying to encourage us to turn towards Him. And the last line, I will live in the house of the Lord forever. That we have a place in God's house. God's our shepherd, and that He's made a place for us that'll always be there. Any thoughts on how the New Living Bible has phrased this psalm that we know so well? As I said, I would close with the King James version of the psalm that we know so well, that brings us comfort in knowing and hearing these words that have been with us so long. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for His name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for Thou art with me. Thy rod and Thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Well, I hope that this has been meaningful, and I hope that you will join us later on this morning in worship as Pastor Dawn explores this passage for us in her series, God with Us. God bless you, and thank you for being here this morning.